States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A roll call, please. Supervisor Elverman, Supervisor Noble have called in. I'm sure Supervisor Grady and Anita Johnson are on their way, but we will continue. This time we'll open the meeting up to citizens' comments. Any citizens wishing to speak? State your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Dan Campion, 11303 232nd Avenue, Trevor. I first want to make a comment regarding the same budget meetings that we also did during the town of Salem. I have to commend the supervisors here at the county level for being persistent. I'm looking into the budget and making certain that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. Again, I know that process. We went through the same thing. Unfortunately, this year we did have to raise our levy, but that's after 4 straight years of zero levy increase. I also want to make mention that on your agenda tonight is a business that's in the town of Salem for the town square. It's a temporary cabaret license. I've talked to a number of supervisors tonight, and I think between the county board, county level, and the town level, that we're looking at this particular business to make certain that it's going to go forward and be safe for the residents of the town of Salem. So at this point in time, I do urge that that be passed this evening, so I'm giving my recommendation to it. And lastly, I'm coming from the west going east, and if anyone had the opportunity to see the moonrise tonight, it was quite majestic. And I think that's also a testimony of where we live. There are certain areas in this area, certainly to the south, that you're not going to be able to see that beautiful moonrise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to speak? Any other citizens wishing to speak? Any other citizens wishing to speak? Seeing none, citizens' comments are closed. At this time, we will have a presentation from DeltaWorks, the consultant for the public safety software. If you'd like to come on up.
Sure. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay, or should I use the microphone? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Michael Galvin. I'm with a consulting firm called DeltaWorks, and we've been working with Kenosha Joint Services now for about the past 12 months on a public safety systems project. The point of today's presentation is to give you a background on the project and really give you an update of where we are today. Just to let everyone know, we are currently in the evaluation phase. It's a confidential process, so we can't give too much information on that evaluation phase. But I just wanted to provide you an update how we've gone so far. We're going to focus on the project background, the methodology, getting to the key findings. Essentially, what our goal here in the first half of the presentation is to explain why this project is so important. After that, we're going to talk about the scoping and procurement process. Essentially, first half of the process will focus on what were the needs of all the agencies involved, what are the needs of Kenosha, and what was the project that we designed around those needs to really look for a stronger system that will help better meet the needs in the future. And lastly, we're going to discuss the risks and benefits of the project and everything associated with that. I will say if there are any questions as we move forward, feel free to interrupt me. I may move a little bit fast, so feel free to ask me any further questions you have during the presentation. So to give everyone some background on the project is that I am part of a firm called DeltaWorks. There were 3 consultants who were working on this project. I am one of them. And we were brought in by Kenosha Joint Services to perform originally a business needs assessment. And on that, we focused on 2 critical applications. First one is called Cisco, which is your CAD, RMS, JMS, and Fire RMS applications. And for those who aren't familiar with those, CAD is your computer-aided dispatch system, so when you call 911, dispatching services. RMS is your records management system, your law enforcement records. JMS is your jail management system, and FIRE is your fire records management system. And data pursuit is the mobile client, essentially the laptops in an officer's vehicle. We were brought on to do a needs assessment, and from there, we were tasked with developing a comprehensive evaluation and selection plan to replace systems based on the needs assessment. So we were able to write an RFP and write a corresponding evaluation selection plan to move forward with that. Our current phase that we're in had 4 main tasks: organization, business needs identification, and RFP development. Those have been completed. We're currently in that 4th phase, which is the RFP evaluation phase. Periodically, over the course of the project, DeltaWorks and members of the project team have provided project updates after key milestones. As far as our methodology, we really had 4 primary goals working into this project. The first was to understand the current technical environment of all the agencies involved, not just joint services, but also the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, and the Fire Department. From there, our next goal was to really identify the current and future business needs of the consortium. From there, we moved to develop an RFP that put the consortium in a position to acquire a modern system. And lastly, successfully negotiate a contract with selected vendor or vendors. That step in the process hasn't happened yet, because as I said, we're in the evaluation phase currently. As far as how we went about our process, first we reviewed documentation provided by the consortium and member agencies, previous studies, previous RFP that was written, and system overview documents. We also interviewed 50-plus personnel, everyone from end users to command staff. And we also conducted ride-alongs and sit-alongs to really observe operations. As far as key deliverables and milestones, our first deliverable was a business needs assessment that was presented, that was reviewed and approved by the project team. The project team was made up of members of the Fire Department, Joint Services, the Sheriff's Department, and Police Department. After that, God bless you. After that needs assessment was written, we reviewed that document and had a presentation with the project team. And from there, we received unanimous consensus in support of scoping and procurement recommendations that we're going to discuss today. From there, we developed an RFP and an evaluation and selection plan that was approved by the project team. And as part of that, the project team identified an yes? Please.
Quick question of the project team. The people that said Sorry about that. The individuals that were on the project team with you, were they actual users, or are they in just management positions, or a combination of both?
It was a combination of both. The project team was primarily command staff and more on the executive management level, but there were users. As part of that, they kind of shifted into a steering committee role for the process, and the actual evaluation is put more on end users. That being said, some of the project team is also on the evaluation team.
Okay, so you had a nice mix, but you certainly had end users as part of your project team, so they could communicate needs, not perceived needs.
Certainly, and
Okay.
as part of the
Thank you.
project, one of the main tasks that we had was defining functional requirements, and that was a week-long session where we sat with end users and went through a little bit of a laborious process to really specifically outline what do end users need moving forward. But we wanted to make sure we took a holistic approach, getting everyone's viewpoints. So as I was saying, the project team moved into more of a steering committee role and appointed an evaluation team to review the proposals, and that's the role we're in today. After the conclusion of the evaluation process, that evaluation team is going to present their recommendation to the steering committee, which was that original project team. So as the business needs assessment, there were a couple of major findings that we just wanted to just highlight today. As everyone knows, as hopefully everyone has received a copy of the written business needs assessment. It's a very thorough document, so if there is a little bit more information you'd like, I'll try to answer them today, but also it's on that document that hopefully have the clarification you're seeking. In general, the Cisco application was a highly customized system that is no longer supported by the solution provider. In fact, the system was bought out by another company many years ago. One of the current benefits of the solution is that Kenosha owns the source code to that solution. And what that essentially means is you're allowed to customize that solution however the agency sees fit. That being said, that source code ownership is something that expires due to the next upgrade. Currently, you're on version 9 and version 12. It's a mixture between the agencies involved. Upgrading beyond version 12, that source code ownership will go away. As far as the dispatching, our main findings were the basic call-taking dispatching functionality was met, but it's not really providing the advanced functionality that the communications department is seeking. Because of that, you need complementary, non-integrated products to meet shortcomings. So AVL, which is vehicle GPS, mapping, chat features, be on the lookout, these communication devices. There's also concern that it will not be able to meet increasing functional demands, things like closest unit dispatching. What that refers to, if there's an emergency, not going by static run card to determine what's the most appropriate unit, but rather taking the real-time unit location to determine the best unit to recommend. There's also concern that there's a lack of seamless integration with the mobile client, which we're going to touch on in a minute. As far as the police RMS, it stores a wide breadth of data, but information primarily is very difficult to extract. It's required a lot of customizations over the years. And one of the biggest shortcomings of the system is a lack of field reporting. And what field reporting is report writing for officers in the field. Essentially, their police reports, they'd be able to write them on a laptop. The major repercussions of not having this system is that it really affects productivity and accountability. For one, you have redundant data entry. It requires somebody to complete a report on hand. It now has to get retyped. As far as data accuracy, what agencies and what officers, what end users really seek to is that one point of data flow, one point of data entry. So the idea that it can flow through seamlessly from your original dispatch into your report writing software. Again, time in field with hard copies, individuals now have to return to station to complete them. So if you're looking for productivity and accountability, field reporting is really an essential piece of, is an essential tool, and it's pretty much standard across the country. JMS, which is the JAM system, this is the jail system. It's highly integrated with a number of third-party applications that's been continually customized to meet the data collection needs of Kenosha Sheriff's Department. Heavily influenced by federal requirements such as ICE. Currently, you're operating on version 9 due to the time-consuming process to upgrade to version 12. And the reason why it's so time-consuming is because of source code ownership and because the system has been customized. Essentially, to upgrade to the new system, you need to go back and modify the source code so it matches those modifications that have run today. And then it'll, of course, have to go through subsequent testing. The Fire RMS, it's not as intricately used in the Cisco products, but it does not meet the varying needs of records management for KFD. It's used only for NFIRS reporting and accrued leave. And NFIRS is essentially your fire incident reporting, so after every fire, an NFIRS report has to be completed. Similarly, you're operating in a version 9, not version 12. And due to the lack of functionality available in the Fire RMS, they've acquired a number of third-party systems or custom systems, such as ImageTrend, Platinum Systems, and other Microsoft databases to meet the needs of the department. And lastly is the data pursuit. It's in use by law enforcement agencies only, but the critical element that's missing is this FIPS 140-2 compliance. That is CJIS compliance. What it does is that FIPS 142 is required to have access to critical third-party systems, which is your Wisconsin time system. So essentially, officers being able to query critical databases is in jeopardy by not having a compliant system. Additionally, it's got missing or incomplete interfaces. The dispatching system is limited to only 100 characters remarks field, so as calls are updated and information is sent, it's not transferred to the officers in the field. Limited with your RMS and also another report writing system, which is the Badger Tracks, which is specifically your ticket writing system. System is not updated by the vendor, and it does not provide other functionalities such as routing, previous call lookups, single status view. These are all needs that are required of the department. So what was our outcome of the assessment? Users of the CAD, the RMS, and the Fire RMS regarding Cisco felt that the functionality did not meet the need. The current functionality was not meeting the current needs of the system. Those on the JMS portion felt that the system currently met the majority of the needs, and the other needs would be met through an upgrade to version 12. On the mobile application, the data pursuit application, replacement of data pursuit is a necessity. Not just to replace the failure of the FIPS 142- compliance, but also to bring in new functionality. So from there, we tried to identify some procurement objectives, and we pooled everyone in one of 3 different areas. The first was the CAD, mobile, and RMS. It was clearly identified that the system needs to be replaced. Users of the JMS felt that the system currently met the needs, but this was an opportunity to explore other options out there. So there's an approach that let's see what's out there, but at the same time, let's have options to allow for a best-of-breed solution as well as potentially maintain the current system. Fire record system, the goal was to explore potential replacement since the system does not currently meet the needs. However, there is a product in use today that may meet the needs if it's just rolled out to the rest of the department. That being said, this was an opportunity for the fire department to do its due diligence to see what other applications are out there. So with these procurement objectives in mind, we had to design a scoping and procurement option that met the needs of everybody involved. So essentially, there are 2 main scoping options. The first was a sole source upgrade. The other was going through an RFP process. Everyone involved felt it was very critical that we go through and do our due diligence through an RFP process. The next part of scoping was to determine what applications to replace. And as I just mentioned before, there was an opportunity for a CAD mobile RMS AFR identified that needed to be replaced. The JMS and FireMS at least go through the process of doing diligence to see if there was a system that could better meet the needs of each agency involved. As far as how that procurement happened, there are mainly two primary approaches: either require an integrated solution, essentially ask for all those applications I just listed, or option number two, allow for interface standalone solutions. Essentially, one could bid a CAD, one could bid a mobile, one could bid a record system, and so forth. What we sought to do was a hybrid of both of those options, and essentially we required an integrated CAD, mobile, records, and field reporting solution, but at the same time allow vendors of a Fire RMS or JMS to bid independently or bid as part of a larger package. The reasoning behind that was A, your benefits of a competitive procurement gave you opportunity to explore marketplace options as well to leverage best value. The CAD Mobile RMS AFR primary is because it doesn't meet the consortium's needs, and as in the marketplace today, a CAD Mobile RMS AFR integrated system is pretty standard in the marketplace. JMS, though current needs are met, expiration of source code jeopardized future functionality advancements, and at the same time, we thought it would be okay to do this in an independent fashion because it's still common in the marketplace to have independent JMS vendors. FireMS, similar thought process. It was an opportunity to explore the marketplace, determine whether image trend is the best fit, and at the same time, it's still common to have independent FireMS vendors in the public safety application field. Just to give an update, everyone, on the process. Several months ago, we developed an RFP with all affected stakeholders. This is where we met with end users from all departments. We met with management. We met with purchasing. We met with essentially everyone that could potentially be impacted by this project to write a comprehensive RFP. After that was reviewed and approved by everyone on the team, we identified a steering committee and evaluation team. Again, that steering committee was the original project team. The evaluation team right now is evaluating proposals, and we're hopeful that within the next few months, we'll have an opportunity to present our recommendation moving forward. The process is currently in progress, hoping for a vendor to be identified at the end of the first quarter next year, and from there moving into the contract negotiation phase. So what are the potential outcomes? For the CAD, mobile, records, and field reporting, the solution will be replaced. For the JMS, there's three options. Current solution may be maintained, solution may be replaced with an identical vendor as the CAD mobile RMS, or it may be independent of the CAD mobile RMS. Fire RMS, similar outcomes. Image trend, which is that other application that's used by the EMS half of the fire department, may be expanded, may be replaced with the identical vendor as the CAD mobile RMS provider, or may be independent of that provider. And lastly, I just want to wrap up with some of the risks and benefits of this approach. The first one to highlight kind of the risk of maintaining the Cisco JMS. There's always the concerns of system longevity and support. As we said earlier, using a mix of both version 9 and version 12 of the application. In order to maintain the source code, you can no longer upgrade past version 12 of the solution. In fact, that solution is not even being sold by a vendor today. Concerns about integration and recurring costs goes without saying that if you go with a separate JMS vendor and separate vendors for everything else, you're likely going to be paying two different maintenance costs for each of those applications. Advancing functionality, as I mentioned earlier, the company has been sold, and as far as the version number you're on, you're not onto the latest version. As such, there's no marketplace advancements that get brought to Kenosha. Instead, that functionality has really been determined in-house. At the same time, which is a critical benefit, but at the same time, you're limited by marketplace advancements. And lastly, your upgrade limitations, as I mentioned earlier, to maintain that source code, you're going to have to stay on version 12. As soon as you move to the next version, which is version 14, that source code ownership gets lost, and you'll be no longer allowed to manipulate the source code. As far as risk of the actual RFP approach, it may result in multiple vendors being selected. In that case, you may have a lengthy negotiation process, as well as likelihood of increase in cost and management of resources. It also may result in vendors that have not previously worked together. And if that occurs, Kenosha may have to limit the level of integration between multiple systems. What that means is master names, your flow of data, essentially from your computer-aided dispatch system all the way through your records management and report writing systems. However, we do think there are a number of benefits of the projects. Number one is expanding functionality. Number two is increase in integration. Now, this is obviously dependent on the outcome of the evaluation. But we think, in particular, in your CAD, mobile records, and field reporting side, there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's key benefits that could happen. Moving to commercial off-the-shelf product, decreases resources required to manage the system. Increase efficiency through new features. As mentioned earlier, the field reporting process really improves productivity and accountability. And lastly, by having more tools available to end users, it really promotes user independence. Things like running reports, running crime analysis reports. You're no longer relying on experts in that field if you have the adequate technology available to you. Apologize if I spoke a little fast. Yes. Sure.
Expand a little bit on your risks of RFP approach. May result in multiple vendors being selected. Ultimately, that result would be driven by the selection team, would it not?
Correct.
I guess I'm not clear how that's a risk.
Well, the risk is, the primary risk of it is that it could result in a lengthy negotiation process. You're going to have to manage multiple contracts and potentially multiple implementations. And when you get vendors that haven't worked together previously, you might get finger pointing if certain interfaces don't work as they are intended.
But at the end of the day, if we determine that to be problematic, why on earth would the recommendation be to select multiple vendors? I don't know how the RFP sets us up for that, I guess is my question.
So one of our goals, if we take a step back, was we had all these different procurement objectives. And a concern was the users of the fire RMS and jail management system essentially didn't want to be driven off their systems based upon needs of a CAD mobile records management system. So we tried to design the RFP with those in mind. So the way the evaluation was set up, you essentially have one RFP, but 3 separate scoring criteria for each of those groups of applications. We're certainly going to keep it in mind, and it's part of the evaluation plan to take that into account.
All right, so then the risk has been set up by the requirements of the various agencies. In other words, either one's willingness or unwillingness.
It was identified
to not be all on the same platform.
Correct. And to just explain kind of the marketplaces, the integration between CAD, mobile, RMS, and field reporting is pretty standard throughout. The jail portion and the fire records portion are not necessarily as integrated. It's not as common in the marketplace. So we thought this approach could meet the needs of all the agencies involved, but at the same time open up the door for more vendors to potentially bid on the product.
Sure.
Did that answer the question, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Mike? I've been through a significant business system transition, and it was painful because of a lot of customization.
Yep.
I'm hoping that we don't end up there because those interfaces are not going to work. Constant consulting, upgrades. Where are you at with regards to that? How much of a and I know there's always a little customization, don't get me wrong, but how much of an off-the-shelf, because you talk about it up here, and I think that's important because it's tried and true, a lot of the bugs are out of it, would fit into it? And is the resistance on the jail and fire going to prevent you from using more of a standardized system across the boards? Because that will end up costing us money.
Certainly. I think the goal, as we went through this, was to acquire a commercial off-the-shelf solution. Frankly, during these discussions, it's been pretty aware that some agencies, some business processes are going to have to be modified just to meet the system's needs. At the same time, certain business processes may be in today because of customizations or just because simply that's how it was always done. It may not always be the most efficient way possible. But we're certainly looking for commercial off-the-shelf products with as small or minimal modifications as possible. If we move forward, I mean, frankly, the way the marketplace is set up is vendors will not customize your system specifically for you. They'll make those customizations, but that becomes part of the base product moving forward. Kind of where the marketplace has changed is that vendors used to support, there'd be a unique system for Racine, a unique system for Kenosha, a unique system for Milwaukee. Essentially what happened is it just didn't become financially viable to keep that. So they try to get everybody on the same space solution as possible. Now that being said, there is some configurability options that will allow you to customize or tailor the system, but as far as manipulating source code or customizing it so it's the completely unique system, I think that's been understood by everyone involved that that's probably not going to happen in the future.
Okay, and because if it comes to the board, we eventually are going to give the green light on it. Last thing I want to see is, well, there's still a lot of customization that has to take place. One is the functionality won't be there, and 2 is the cost. Are all 3, because it sounds like there's kind of 3 buckets, if you would. Mm-hmm. they understand that there may be a case where business practices, where not dictated by statute or something along those lines, that they may have to change the way that they're doing things to be able to utilize the new system, and how receptive has your clients been with that?
You know, I believe it is. It's been brought up in past meetings as well, the idea of, you know, this change management process, you know, not just looking at the culture of putting in a new system, but also that, frankly, business processes may change. And I think that as part of this process, everyone's been educated on that. As far as identifying what's a customization, what won't be, we wrote the RFP in such a way that they had to specifically outline what functionality would be a customization and what would be coming out of the box, essentially. But I think the message has been heard from departments that you may have to move off and change your business practices. How much? I mean, frankly, we won't know till we narrow down that vendor. And really
Nobody likes change, but it's inevitable. There was one other thing now, but it escapes me. Anyways, thank you very much.
I know you can't speak specifically to the scope necessarily of what bids you have, but what was the response from bidders who bid a comprehensive package as opposed to those who may have gone a la carte with the various agencies that you've got?
The overwhelming majority was a comprehensive package.
It was?
Yep.
So that hopefully will make your job, your selection process for the committee a little bit easier.
Let's hope so.
Of course, you got to get buy-in from all the parties who are involved, but as long as I get that answer, that helps me at least give me some sense that, you know, our risk is probably, in terms of the risks of the RFP, they maybe aren't quite as great as the way they were explained.
Yeah, these were...
And I know you're giving background, so I'm not suggesting that, you know, you had any better way to present it, but at least a further answer to my question gives me a little bit better comfort. Thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned version 14's out, and obviously we were behind. We were version 9, and now we're going to be 12. So, and I understand that's because the bugs are out, and it makes sense. But could you give us an idea how long you think version 12 will serve us? I mean, are you looking, since 14's out, are we already going to be way behind in a year and a half or two, or will we get use out of this for a while?
Frankly, it'll depend upon who you ask.
I'm asking you.
Certainly, I mean, the department, how long it's been on version 9, I couldn't tell you how long it's been on version 9, but I assume it's been a while. Version 12, frankly, you could stay in that version for a year, for 2 years, for multiple years, as long as you're supporting it with the system's no longer being supported by its original vendor. It's being supported by another third party.
Okay.
It's no longer receiving continual upgrades, which in software is the name of the game, frankly. It's every time you launch your iTunes, every 6 weeks you need to upgrade the software in a way.
So is there a version 13 and we're already 2 behind with 12? That's my question.
I mean, frankly, Cisco is no longer even a company.
Right. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
2 things. How comfortable are you with it, from what you've seen of it? And I know it's kind of looking in the crystal ball. The customization that needs to take place, how effective and I won't say easy because it's never easy, is that able to do in certain areas? Number 2 is, in the long run, does the current structure within our IT department have what it takes to then support it and make adjustments along the way? Thank you.
I think as far as customization, if you're talking about interfaces to third-party products, frankly, if they are commercially available, if they are used by a number of other departments, which we've identified which ones are, there's not really too much of a concern, and it's frankly not necessarily a customization because they've done it before. As far as, frankly, it'll depend on what you consider a customization to be. You know, if you're talking about using a drop-down menu and you want to put it with just strictly Kenosha codes, that's not a customization, it's a configuration. I think the responses we got back, the level of modification and customization proposed was very little. And the general response from the community is that if you want a customization and if they'll agree to do it, it becomes part of the standard product. So when the next upgrade is released, that customization is accounted for. As far as the second part of your question, I frankly wouldn't be able to answer that question.
You just haven't got to that point. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I will say that Kenosha Joint Services is very confident, but we wouldn't be able to tell you, we being DeltaWorks.
Once the final package is selected, then will that be part of the evaluation? Do we have the infrastructure in place to support it ongoing?
Well, theoretically,
That's really 19.
yeah, if you were to move off your current system and move to one of these new commercial cell systems, theoretically, your support should go down. Because how the way you're currently set up is you have a third party that's supporting this other system. This one, you would be having it primarily supported by the vendor you acquire. They're going to be the ones in charge of providing upgrades, providing updates. That being said, you still need IT to support the system and whatever the third parties you have in there. But the primary support of the application will come directly from the vendor.
Okay, seeing no more hands or lights, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will move on with our meeting. Announcements of the chair. I have a letter from Mr. Riedel. November 22nd will be the first payday that the county will not distribute earnings statements. Beginning Friday, County Board Supervisors will access their earnings statements online. To access your information, please follow the directions on the Dayforce User Reference Guide, which has been placed on your desk. Mr. Riedel's here tonight if we have any questions. After this meeting, if you have questions, contact the payroll group at the email address on the user guide. You're also welcome to contact personnel. So, any questions on that? All right. The Christmas party information's out. You can get your check or cash to Mary if you're interested in attending. The packets, you had another packet on your desk today because there's problems with the copier in the clerk's office. It skips pages, unbeknownst to them. So I called and we discovered that some pages were skipped, and not just the sheets for signatures, some of the other pages. So that's why you have that. Also, the proceeding books are on the side tables for our proceedings for the last couple of years if you're interested in grabbing them. And today is Reggie's birthday, who helps us with our county board meeting. So
Happy birthday.
I won't ask the board to break out in song, but your work here is appreciated, and happy birthday. At this time, we'll move to supervisor reports. Supervisor Brunick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an update for the board. Over the next few months, Planning and Development is going to be going through all of the ordinances for Kenosha County. Once they have updated some of the ordinances, and some of these have been around since the beginning of time, they have to take all of them all at once to the different townships and villages and get approval by them before they come to the county board. But I just wanted to let everyone know that this will be coming probably March, April, May. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunick. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let the board know that next week's Human Services meeting, in light of the holiday, has been canceled. Staff did not have anything that needed to be put on the agenda, and to the best of my recollection, I did not receive an email from any fellow committee members who wish to have something on the agenda. So therefore, that meeting will be canceled. Also to let folks know, I got appointed to the NACO Transportation Committee, the National Association of Counties. We had our first meeting of sorts. It was a conference call last Friday at about 4 in the afternoon. That committee deals with all transportation issues, whether it's harbors, passenger rail, freight rail, airports, highways. The committee chair from DuPage County, Illinois, made it clear that the focus was going to be on MAP 21, which is a transportation reauthorization coming up in 2014. He also consulted apparently with some of the other chairs of the NACO committees to see what concerns they had regarding transportation, what their needs were, as well as the folks who are part of the large urban county caucus, known as LUC, and the rural action caucus, known as RAC. I'll be honest, MAP 21 is not a piece of legislation that I'm acquainted with, but I'll be spending my holidays getting very acquainted with it and update you as some of those conversations advance with that set of folks. Additionally, this may be of interest to folks here. I don't know how many of you received the email, but the lady who does our foreclosure mediation program, our coordinator, Laverne May, has stepped down from that position. There will be a meeting on December 5th at 12 noon in the second floor conference room to review that foreclosure mediation programs and the future outlook. It does seem that the clerk of courts has stepped up to fill in that gap for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Seeing no more lights, supervisor reports are closed.
New business, resolution one reading, 67, from Judiciary and Law Committee regarding probationary cabaret license for Town Square. Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington excused. Anita Johnson, yes. Montemiro, yes. Noble excused.
Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 67.
Resolution 67's been moved by Supervisor Esposito, seconded by Supervisor Ron Johnson. Supervisor Esposito.
This is a probationary cabaret license for Town Square located in Salem. There was, actually, their regular cabaret license had expired or lapsed, so they've had one previous. This is a probationary one. There seemed to be some issues with the structure of the building, so on and so forth. It was discussed at our committee. The building inspector and fire marshal approved this before this probationary cabaret license came before our committee. Talking to Mr. Campman before the meeting in the town of Salem, they will not be issued a permanent cabaret license unless everything is taken care of in regards to it. So that seemed to be good with the committee. So at this time, I urge your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Supervisor Molinaro.
There's two documents here. I guess here's the third, and I'm just seeing this for the first time. I realize these are our new packets for us. My question is, why would we issue anything at all, and in deference to the representative from the town is here suggesting that we go ahead and approve it, but why would we issue anything at all for a building that the inspector won't even sign off on at this point, temporary or permanent?
My understanding is that the building inspector did sign off on this. That's what we were told at the meeting. And the fire marshal, but they're in construction. They had to shore up the building. They've done that. They've passed that part of it. For them to move forward, it's like a process of a project.
Do they have occupancy in the building?
Yes, they do, just the first floor. And there's 2 floors to the building. The second floor is uninhabitable, where there cannot be any occupancy. So they have 6 months to, I don't know if you want to say, finish the project, so to speak. They will not be issued, if the project is not finished, they will not be issued a permanent cabaret license. The biggest issue was shoring up the building. There seemed to be an issue. They've hired an architect. An architect is working with them.
I chuckle because that's, shoring up the building is a pretty significant, incredibly significant issue, and I'm not sure why we're going to support a temporary cabaret license that has the intention of improving the population and use of that building that, to this point in time, doesn't have a full occupancy on it. So I guess my option is to vote no, and based on what I'm hearing tonight, that's what I'll do.
Okay, Supervisor Rose.
A question to the Judiciary and Law Chair. The drafting of the resolution says that the license is issued now. But am I understanding that it's not going to be really in use now because the project has not been completed and the final approvals have not been received? Am I reading, is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is the establishment is open for business now. Okay, they had a cabaret license. There was a 5-month lapse. They had a permanent cabaret license. So they had to go back and apply for a probationary cabaret license. That's why we're here tonight. There were some structural issues with the building. They've since satisfied these structural issues in regards to the building inspector and the fire marshal. But there's other issues with the building, obviously, that need to be addressed before the sheriff's department or my committee will issue any type of permanent cabaret license, if that answers your question.
Why should we then issue the probationary if there are some other problems? I'm not clear what those problems are exactly, but
I don't believe those problems are anything that affects the public or the public safety. All right, I know there's some issues that have to be addressed, and they seem to be working through them. And
What are
my
those?
my understanding is that the building inspector and the fire marshal are on board with this. Maybe Mr. Cadman could speak a little more to this.
what are these other issues, though?
I believe there was some issues where they're doing some stuff with the roof.
The what?
And-
The roof?
The roof, and there was some other issues. Most of it was the second floor. The first floor seems to be, have occupancy.
Do
That's-
they use the second floor?
No, they do not, and they're not allowed to. So, I don't know, Dan, maybe if you could shed a little more light on that?
Glad to. Again, Dan Campion, 11303 232nd Avenue in Salem. The building was constructed in the early 1900s, and we have limited use at the moment to only the first floor, the ground floor. There is no occupancy for the second floor. It is a two-story building. And they have done the shoring, which is required by the town and through the county, and they've used an architect in order to do the proper shoring. The next step is to actually put a permanent roof on the structure. So that's the point that they're at the moment, is putting the permanent roof on. But the actual structure, we've deemed through the building inspector, through the architect, the engineer of the town, that it is safe for first floor occupancy only. And we're giving them a period of time in order to get this completely shored up. And part and parcel of it is the issuance of a temporary cabaret license.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Molinaro.
If I could, the statement that was just made is part and parcel to it. The "it," I'm assuming, is getting the building back entirely up to snuff. Part and parcel to it is the cabaret license. Again, I'm going to tell this board, we should not be in the business of issuing cabaret licenses, temporary or permanent, with the intent that it's going to help a business owner get to a point where they can get their building fully up to snuff. I won't debate any further. I will vote no. So I'll request a roll call on this issue.
Okay. Do you?
I was just going to point out what Mr. Campion already pointed out, that it has been cleared for occupancy on the first floor by the building inspector, by the engineer and architect.
Thank you. Supervisor Dodge.
Yes, I see in our packet we have a paper here from Schmidt Engineering. And I'd like to ask through the chair to whomever whether the recommendations of the engineer have all been met.
Supervisor Esposito.
To date, I believe the recommendations for the shoring of the building have been met, and they're working through the process to meet all the rest of the recommendations. There again, as I stated before, this is why this is a probationary cabaret license. They will not receive a permanent one until everything is taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, is a roll call requested, Supervisor Molinaro? Oh, okay. Roll call is requested. Anita needs to be, she can't vote. Resolution 67 passes 15 to 5.
Resolution 68 from Planning Development Extension Education Committee regarding plat of addition to Liberty Cemetery Association, care of John Schultz, owner, in the I-1 Institutional District in the town of Salem. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move resolution number 68.
Resolution 68's been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on State Trunk Highway 83, just south of County Trunk Highway C in the town of Salem. The plat of addition would add 200 plots to the cemetery. This addition would allow the cemetery to offer its services for approximately an additional 15 years. The cemetery also received PDEC approval for the required conditional use permit prompted by the plat of addition request, which now brings the use into compliance with the current Kenosha County General Zoning and Shoreland Floodplain Zoning Ordinance. The town of Salem recommended approval of the request.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no lights, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 68 is passed.
Resolution 69 from Planning Development Extension Education Committee regarding request that the Kenosha County Board adopt the Kenosha County Farmland Preservation Plan, second edition. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move resolution number 69.
Resolution 69's been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution would adopt the Kenosha County Farmland Preservation Plan, second edition. The plan was reviewed previously in 2011, was held over during state review, and is now moving forward for final approval by the county board. Having the plan in place will allow farmers and landowners to be eligible to participate in the state tax credit program, agricultural enterprise areas, and the purchase of agriculture conservation easement program. The Planning Development Extension Education Committee reviewed the plan at their meeting of November 13, 2013, and recommends approval of this item.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no lights, all in favor of the resolution? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 69 passes.
Resolution 70 from Planning Development and Extension Education Committee regarding request to approve the appointment of Lieutenant Gil S. Ben to serve on the Kenosha County Land Information Council. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move resolution number 70.
Resolution number 70 has been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Underhill. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution would approve the appointment of Lieutenant Gil S. Ben to the Land Information Council. Lieutenant Gil will succeed Lieutenant Ed Van Tyne, who recently retired on this council. The appointment will be for a term until July 1st of 2016, or until a successor is appointed by the county executive and confirmed by the Kenosha County Board of Supervisors. The Planning Development Extension Education Committee reviewed the plan at the meeting of November 13th, 2013, and recommends approval of this item.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no lights, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 70 passes.
Resolution 71 from Judiciary and Law Committee, a resolution to approve the appointment of Lieutenant Gil S. Ben to serve as a member of the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington, excused. Anita Johnson, yes. Montemiro, yes. Noble, excused.
Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 70.
Resolution 71's been moved by Supervisor Esposito, seconded by Supervisor Boyd Frederick. Supervisor Esposito.
This resolution is to, again, approve Lieutenant Gil Ben to serve as a member of the local Emergency Management Planning Committee. Lieutenant Ben did come to our meeting, and any questions that were answered, he was more than happy. He was excited that he was going to continue with this process of the whole emergency management system. So with that, I urge your approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no lights, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 71 passes.
Communication from Andy M. Bueller regarding future items scheduled before the Planning Development Extension Education Committee.
We'll receive and file that communication.
Approval of the minutes from the November 5th, 2013 public hearing, organizational, and annual meetings, and November 6th, 2013 minutes by Supervisor Arrington.
Supervisor Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move the minutes from the November 5th and November 6th meetings.
Supervisor Arrington has made a motion to approve the minutes from the November 5th and 6th meetings. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Underhill. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those are approved. It's been moved to adjourn by Supervisor Underhill, seconded by Supervisor Arrington. All those in favor?
Aye. Are you going to Christmas party?
I'm not sure.
I'll ask my wife, man. If she wants to go, then we'll go.